Yeah, thank you for the introduction and thanks for having me. And I'm going to talk about how to build a composable storefront with Magnolia and Salesforce Commerce Cloud today. I'm Nandi, and going straight into the content. But actually, before I do what I have to do, since we are a public traded company on the stock market, I have to present that forward-looking statement in all my presentations. But don't worry, it is just essentially meaning that please, if you buy Salesforce, only place your buying decisions on what we already have live. But the good news is everything which I'm going to demo to you today is live just in the way as I'm going to present it. All right, so what's the plan? We are almost at the end of a very quick intro. And then the first thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to show a little bit about the different options which we have with Salesforce Commerce Cloud to go live with front ends. Actually, we have three different options here. And then actually the main part is a hands-on session. I'm going to show you actually how to create fancy composable commerce storefronts with Magnolia and Salesforce all together. And then we are going to wrap it up and have a nice discussion if you want. And this discussion very likely is going to be in the breakout on the pause room afterwards. All right, so let's kick it off. Salesforce Commerce Cloud is actually was an acquisition of a company called Demandware back in 2016. And also Demandware from the beginning was a software as a service company, so it's all cloud-based. Let me quickly introduce you into the high-level architecture here to then speak about the front ends and then actually do some coding on the front end itself. So we have a cloud offering. We call it a multi-tenant cloud here because for us it is that all of our customers are always on the same version, right? On the same version, and that's always the most current version. So there's no such thing like one customer's on version 2, another one on version 3, and so on. No, we're always on the most current version, and actually there is only two versions of Commerce Cloud existing. That's the one which is deployed to customers right now, and then the other one which we are developing currently. Right, and so on this layer, which we call the operations infrastructure layer, we are taking care about the infrastructure, the hosting, scalability, reliability, these things, security, compliance. So think about PCI DSS, GDPR, where we make sure that the platform is actually compliant to that and that all our customers can benefit from that. On top of that, we then have our commerce services and microservices for all the things which you need to run a commerce site, from a cart, of a payment, even artificial intelligence, like the little guy here. So we call our artificial intelligence Einstein, and includes things like recommendations, but also predictive sort, completing the set, and features like that. This is all then consolidated into an API layer. And for this API layer, actually, we are using internal technology, which is MuleSoft. You might be aware of it. It was also actually an acquisition, I think, like 2 years ago. And that layer has a CDN, it has API rules, routing. You can even extend that layer. So it's basically everything included here, what you need to build a headless experience, both in front end as well as in back end experiences. And Salesforce is not only commerce, but we have many other clouds. Actually, we've been founded as a CRM company. So we have also solutions for marketing, service, order management, and many more. It's not too important here for today because we are focusing on commerce, but this is available through the same API layer here. And then, of course, if you want to do e-commerce, you need product data. You need a place where you actually export the orders to after they have been created on the commerce site. You might need a place to store customer data too, and this is when where it comes to integrating actually to the customer's backend systems. And this can also, again, be done in many different ways. You could utilize the integrated or the native Commerce Cloud integration layer, or again, you could use MuleSoft here on the site to integrate external tools as well. All right, so let's simplify a little bit. Let's call all that the back end, and let's now talk about the front end options which we have with Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And the first option is actually the most simple one in regards to complexity. And also it is the one which is probably the fastest to go live with. We call it storefront reference architecture. It is a traditional, let's say, template-based approach. It has about 250 wireframes fully built out. And so the most easy way to go live here would be actually connecting to a system which contains the product data, to a system which has prices, inventory, customer data, and so on, feeding in your products, feeding in all your information, then also maybe skinning the storefront, and then you could go live, right? So it's pretty simple, very nice if your key focus is really on going to market very fast. And actually, some of our large customers are using this approach to test out new markets, because it's really just a matter of a couple of weeks to go live here. And since our approach in regards to front ends is that it is composable, which means that you actually can combine them, it's very easy to switch from this then later on to a headless approach. Okay, that's option number one. Option number two would be in regards to the complexity on the complete other side of the spectrum. And it would mean that you actually bring your own front end. Right. So this can be very useful, for example, if you already have a front end and if you just want to exchange the commerce layer and then benefit from tools like AI and the different services which we offer. This also means, on the other hand, that you have to bring your own infrastructure. So you could deploy it wherever you want, actually, on AWS, Azure, GCP, or also Heroku, which is a cloud of Salesforce again. And then on top of that, you can just use whatever technology you feel is the right one for you and utilize that then. For the front ends, we have another option actually on this option, which would be utilizing our App Exchange. And within our App Exchange, we have technology partners like Magnolia, for example, which you could then use here. Right, so much more complex, of course, than a template-based approach, but on the other hand, also more flexible, and basically you have complete autonomy in regards to the decouplement of front-end and back-end, which is here the case. And then finally, the third option, which I want to talk about, is the composable commerce storefront. And this one consists basically of two parts. So on the one hand, we have a PWA kit, which is formerly known as Mobify. So we bought Mobify a while ago, integrated it, and now we're offering this layer as PWA kit in composable storefront. It is built on React. It's super flexible. We are actually going to see that in the demo. So that's the one part, the storefront itself. And then on the other hand, and that's the difference actually to the third option, or to the second option, which I showed. It is also coming with its own infrastructure. And this is what we call managed runtime, right? So it has the storefront and also the infrastructure. And I think that's a very nice feature because, I mean, if you go headless, there's a couple of things which I consider quite easy to do, right? So for example, the question, which front-end framework actually to choose, right? Or how to organize your code across regions or across teams, or how to automate testing. But when there are some things which are a little bit more difficult, so think about things like which team is actually going to handle incident management 24/7, right? Who's doing operational monitoring? How will you achieve 99.99% uptime with cost efficiency? How do you balance between business and performance needs, right? In regards to things like caching, deployment times. How do you scale in peak times like in holiday seasons, Cyber Week, and so on? How do you take care about PCI compliance? How do you stay on top of security patches, and so on, right? And all this basically comes with managed runtime. It also includes lots of developer tools. You have on-demand environments. You have CI/CD tools included. So basically everything you need. All right, so that's option number 3. And this option is actually also what I'm going to focus on in the hands-on part, which we are going to explore next. All right, so just as a conclusion here, right, 3 options: a template-based approach, full headless, and then the headless option, which we are also bringing the infrastructure to it. All right, so for the hands-on part, let me actually switch screens. I cannot see that. Yes, it's visible. Perfect. And what I'm going to do here is I will in a minute introduce you to the site which I've already built out with Magnolia, which you can see on the right-hand side here. And what we're going to do is we are going to extend that page. But before I actually come to the hands-on part, let me introduce in the setup which I've taken here. So on the right-hand side, I have Magnolia, right, running locally here on port 8080. On the left-hand side, I have the actual front-end, which is the PWA kit, so the second option, which I showed just a minute ago. And then additionally, we have the Magnolia console here, which we are going to use in a minute. And also I got Visual Studio Code, where we're actually going to do the coding which we require, right? All right, so what have I done so far? I have created a landing page based on a campaign template. And there's a lot of stuff in. Actually, we got a nice little hero on top, and we got some explaining text with a link to a certain campaign, a video component, then a couple of products, and then even more content here, which is quite a thing which we see currently. Actually, a while now, that embedding content and products at the same page makes totally sense, because customers really like that. They like to really get informed about products and then buy the products which they see. All right. Now, the case here is that actually the content managers now came to us and said, okay, hey, that's all quite nice, but we need another component. We need to display something below these products to compare features, for example, right? And if we look at the different components which we have here, sorry, just have to log in here apparently. Let me quickly log in, and then we're going to see that we don't have such a component already. So we need to create one, right? And let me quickly wait until it is loaded. All right, so let's go to our landing page, which we have already created here. Here we go. All right, so if you want to add an component, we can perfectly do this, but as we can see, okay, there's no such thing like a feature comparison component. So let's build something like that. And actually it's quite easy, because we only have to take care about 4 different steps, right? So first of all, we have to create, let's say, the skeleton of that component, right? Then we would have to make this component available on that page template, because we don't want that component is visible in all the page templates or pages which we use. And then actually we would have to build out the styling and the logic, and then finally we can use it on the page. So let's do this. And for the first step, what I really like about Magnolia is that I can actually do it automized, right? So I can just use Magnolia here and do the generate code. And if I do that, I can also see I want to create a component, and let's call that component feature. Let's just call it feature comp, right? And when we create that, and we got the code generated, the feature component is now generated. So let's take a look. And to do so, I have Visual Studio Code here, and in Visual Studio Code, I have opened that project already. And this is a typical React project, right? So this is actually the PWA kit as it comes out of the box, right? So we have our folder here. Within the folder, we have the app folder. And within the app folder, we have things like components, the different pages, and so on. Now, since we just created that component here in Magnolia, I can take a look within components, and we have our new component feature comp already generated here, right? So this could also be done manually, of course, because there's actually not too many dependency. But why should we if we can generate it automatically? So let's take a look at the important files. So first of all, we have our skeleton here. So the feature comp, it's quite simple, right? So it is just creating my an H1 tag, and that H1 tag is getting a title, which is a property which is coming from Magnolia, as we're going to see in a moment. So let's first also import the React here, so it is actually working. Let's save that. And then the second thing, which is interesting or important here for us, is we have a YAML file. And within that one, we are actually defining the properties. And also Magnolia is then using that to build up the UI and let us edit that one. All right, so we got a component already, and we want to include this now into our page. So let's for a moment go out of our components. Let's go to the page templates. Within the page templates, let's go to the campaign template, because this is the one which we are using. And we find another YAML file here. And within this, we are just going to add our new component, feature comp. And once we have done that, let's save that. All right, and let's head back to Magnolia. Let's do a quick reload here. And then we are already ready to utilize this component within our landing page, which we then can observe also actually on the real page here on the right-hand side. All right, we have it. Let's select the right place. Where do we want to have it? We want to have it directly below the products. So let's go to this one. Let's add a component, and let's add it actually before the selected component. We can see our feature comparison is already here. So let's do next. Now let's give it the title, which is the attribute or the attribute which was already predefined. Just call it feature comparison test for now. Let's save the changes. And then we are actually going to have it live on our page, which we are just editing here. Right, and we can also trigger this for the left-hand side so that we can actually observe it on the actual page. All right, feature comparison test. It is not too fancy right now, because for now it is just our component which contains that H1 tag, which is of course not sufficient to have a really feature comparison here. So we can extend that, right? And now this would be really easy because this is based on React. Hence, we can just do React code here. But since I only got like 11 minutes left in the session, and since also we don't want to spend too many time on actually building out components, what we do here in PWA Kit of Salesforce Commerce Cloud is we are also utilizing Chakra UI, right? So if I go to the Chakra UI page, I will find many pre-built components here already. So if I take a look at these components, let's go to components. Well, we have many pre-built components, and there are many more actually on different providers. So we don't have to build out all the basic stuff which we require. So let's take a look, and maybe these tabs would be sufficient. Maybe they will do the job. Let's take a look what they look like actually. Yeah, definitely looks like something we could use. Yeah, I think I like this one most, and when I'm going to use that code just, I'm going to bring it to my actual component. Bring it to my actual component. I don't know exactly what the error here is right now, but we are going to see in a minute. And then also let's actually import. The things. What did I do wrong here actually? Yeah, I'm missing something. Let me quickly check that. Copy that. Let me quickly check. Sorry, I just missed the copyright thing here apparently. So that's actually this one. And let's get it in here. All right. Yeah, it's not very fun. Let's use an actual H1 tag. Right. So sometimes copy and paste is not the best thing, but in this case, now we actually have our component in here. Let me remove this quickly to the original state. So it's tab 1 and tab 2. Tab 2. All right. Here we go. Now, actually, if we take a look back at our component, and let's do a quick reload here, we are going to see that actually now we also have that tab here, which we then can use for the further stuff which we want to build out. Just a second. Did we get an error? No, we didn't. No, we actually got an error. In the JSON response body, internal server error. So we apparently did something wrong in our component. No, here we go. All right, now we have our feature comparison live, right? So we have our component, we have our two tabs, pretty easy. Now the next thing is what we need to do here, of course, since this is just hard-coded all here, the titles actually of our components, we want to have this flexible as well. And so we can just extend the properties here. And let's say we want to have a tab title or tab 1 title and a tab 2 title. Tab 2 title. And we want to be able, or our content manager want to be able actually to edit these here, because if we edit this component right now, we can only edit the title. So let's also make the tab titles editable. And if we want to do this, we have just to do a quick additional change, which is we have to let Magnolia know actually which properties we want to use. And to do so, we would go to the feature comparison YAML and then add these properties quite easily here. Right, so let's actually do it like that. Let's have a tab 1 title and a tab 2 title. Tab 2 title. And let's actually also give them the right labels. Tab 1 title and tab 2 title. Let's save that. Let's make sure that we are utilizing them within our component itself. So let's do it like that. And like that. And now, once we have done that, if we switch back to Magnolia, and if we edit our component again, we can see that we already have our tab 1 and tab 2 titles. Tab 1 title, title test, and tab 2 title test. And save the changes. Let's also reload this one. And then we can actually see that we now are able to fetch our titles directly from what we have configured in Magnolia, right? Which is exactly what our content managers expect and what they want to do, right? And we can see it here within the front end. It's already reloaded. We have our tab 1 title test and our tab 2 title test. In the same way, we could build that out now, of course, for all the remaining stuff, like the actual content within this here. And now the beautiful thing, which I haven't actually told when I was talking about PWA-Kit earlier, is that beside the fact that we have a React-built front-end framework here, and beside the fact that we have the full infrastructure coming with it, what it already has is, and we can see this here within the components, basically all the components, all the pages which you require to do e-commerce, right? So for example, the product detail pages, the product listing pages, the search result pages, and all this is already built out with PWA-Kit, right? So we can just use it and you can build up on that. And now how does that help us here in our case? If we go back here, we can see that we have components for all the different stuff. So for example, within our feature comparison, if we want to have like the product data in here, we can just take a look at the actual product component. So let's go to product and let's go to product.js. We can see that actually we can take from here actually how to get things like the currency, like the image groups, or like the price and the name of the product, right? And we can just reuse this then in our feature comparison. In the same way, we could now make sure that we are actually styling the title a little bit better than we've done like here. And there's also, for example, Shakti UI components just to use for that, or you just do it in React, whatever you wish. All right, since we are actually approaching the end of the session, let me actually wrap it up. What have we actually done, right? So we have seen our 3 different options for front ends in Salesforce Commerce Cloud, from the template-based approach on the one hand side, then on the other hand side, the full headless approach where you bring everything you own, and then actually the sweet spot, I would say, in the middle, where you still have a completely decoupled front end. You have still modern technology, which is React in this case, but you also can benefit from the actual service offering, which we do here, which is the infrastructure to it, which is quite nice. All right. Thank you very much for attending. I'm going to be in the breakout room in a minute. Happy to answer all your questions. And yeah, looking forward to see you there in a second. Thank you very much.